Alright, so I have quite the obsession with timelines, and I'm very fixated on the ages of everyone and the order of events. So I spend a lot of my time reading manga specifically to try to figure out when something happened to create timelines to drive myself absolutely bonkers. So I wanted to share my Naruto timeline real quick. Um, Kishimoto is probably the worst at math of anyone who's ever lived ever. So a lot of the dates given are estimations and are very vague. So certain inconsistencies are you just kind of chalk up as anime. Such things as like supposedly the Hidden Leaf had been established 80 years before the start of Naruto. So that would mean okay, we have Madara's age. Supposedly he died at 90, and he died basically the year before Naruto was born. So the problem with that is that would mean that like Hashirama and Madara established the leaf when they were 11. If I was to follow the fact that he was 90 and that the village was 80. So, I don't think that's the case. So either Madara it was older or the leaf is actually closer to 70. I'm sticking with Madara being 90 for now, just for the sake of math, but understand that one or two dates and ages are more of a guesstimation, and this is all a sliding scale. But everything else is pretty close, so let's have a look. Alright, so, when it comes to figuring out when things happen, it involves a lot of flipping through manga, but I have a timeline. Starting at the very beginning, we have Madara and Hashirama. They are supposedly the same age, so I just made that their birth. Tobirama is supposedly 1 year younger than Hashirama, so there he is. Now, in this time here, I give it 20 years, 5, 10, 15, 20, of brother killing and fighting between the two clans, giving Madara and Hashirama time to become prolific and well-known on the battlefield, and yet still young. So I set them at the founding of the leaf, question mark, of Hashirama and Madara being roughly 20. They could have been older. I don't think they were any younger. If they were any older, though, we start getting to the point where the Hidden Leaf hasn't been established nearly as long as Kishimoto claimed. So we're going to stick with 20. Hirozen, Sarutobi, was born. He would have been born 15 years after the establishment of the Hidden Leaf. And the way I got to his age is actually he died at 69. So figuring out when he was born isn't too difficult. It's just counting backwards. From there, he is actually 19 years older than Tsunade. Tsunade would have been born here. Her birth date is estimated by the fact that she was 50 when Naruto was 12, and it's just a matter of counting backwards. Now, the first ninja war would have happened here 2 years after Tsunade was born. Hashirama would be 55 at this time. Hashirama is said to have died in the first ninja war. I'm thinking he died at the beginning of it, because what started off as skirmishes across all the different lands erupted into full-on war, and I think Hashirama's death was probably the instigation for all of that. So I just roughly estimate that his death, he would have been 55. The first Ninja War is the only war that is given a duration. We know it lasted 4 years. We know that Tobirama was the second Hokage during this war, and that he died by the end of it. So by the end of the war, he would have been, if math is good, 58. Hiruzen would have been made Hokage, and he would have been 25. Tsunade would have been 6 by the time that the war ended and Hiruzen became Hokage. Fugaku Uchiha, which is Sasuke's dad, was actually born 1 year before the war ended. So he's actually closer to being a peer of Tsunade than he is of the other parents. He's a little bit older than everyone. So we go scrolling forward to Tsunade being 12. So this is when she would have been trained with Jiraiya and Orochimaru. So this is a timestamp of events. Minato would have been born here. This is established by knowing that he was 24 when he died, and so we just backtrack. Sosuri would have been born 2 years later. We know this because he was 35 when he died, so this is established by counting backwards. Conan, and obviously just the 3, was born here, established by her age at death. We have Kushina moved to the Leaf. Chapter 499 establishes that she probably moved to the Leaf right around here. She would have been around school age. This is a guesstimation because I wasn't able to pinpoint her exact age. Kakashi would have been born here. Again, backtracked by his age. Then we have 3 years later, the Second Ninja War. Tsunade would have been 26. Conan would have been 6, and this is the war that would have orphaned her and the other Rain Ninja. The Silver Fang of the Leaf, Kakashi's father, would have killed himself 2 years after the war in which he made a name for himself. Kakashi would have been 5. His age is estimated at 31. Or did I misdo that? I think he's estimated at 31. I think that was the what I read online, but is not supported yet. We have Itachi's birth. And then 4 years later, we have the Third Ninja War. This is where things start getting really intense, people. The Third Ninja War, Tsunade would have been 36, Kakashi was 13, Itachi was 4, Sosuri would have been 18, Conan and the Rain Ninja would have been 16. So we know Kakashi was 13. We have that in the manga. Itachi was 4 when he was traumatized by his dad. Sosuri was 18. This is when he made the name for himself, Sosuri of the Red Sand. Minato was made Hokage at around 22. Rin would have died around 14. At the same time that Madara died, supposedly at 90. It was directly following the events of the Third War with Obito getting his head smished. This is where it was really hard. I was flipping through a lot of manga. So chapter 608, Obito at 14 meets Konan, Nagato, and Yahiko. They would have been 18 at this time. This is when he first pretended to be Madara. He had his body wrapped in white zetsu, and he approached them. Yahiko told him to take a hike. Yahiko died not long after that. He would have been 18. Naruto would then be born in this, end of that year. That would have been Obito at 15. Chapter 500 talks about the Nine Tails attack. Minato would have died at 24. Itachi was 7 during the attack, and Sasuke was 3 months old. Going forward here, we have Fugoku died at 40 in the Uchiha Massacre. We learn about this in chapter 590. Tachi was 13, we know. Sasuke was 7, we know. Kakashi was 22. Tsunade would have been 45. Obito, going as Madara at that time, would have been 22. Conan was 25. This is, again, all based off of doing a lot of math and counting. So we go forward to Naruto being 12. Hirozen died at 69, which is how I was able to establish his ages earlier. Tsunade, we know, is 50, as it's stated many times. Kakashi is 27 when he takes on the training of Team 12. Itachi, when we meet him in Part 1 of Naruto, he would have been 18 years old. This is essentially when the time skip happens. In that time skip, Gaara, around the age of 14, becomes Kazekage. Back with the second part of Naruto with Shippuden, Sakura at 15 defeats Sorcery. His death puts him at 35. Sasuke at 16 fights Itachi, who dies at 22. Naruto at 17 years old, his birthday, is the 4th Ninja War, and it lasts like 3 days. It was a pretty hell of a week, but Conan would have died just before the war, thanks to Obito. She was 35. Kakashi would have become Hokage immediately following the war at around 33, making him 32 during the war. The movie, The Last, happens in the winter, and Naruto is 19 at the time. His engagement to Hinata was about a year. In that time is when the Sakura Hidden and Gaara Hidden books take place. In that time, in that time frame, you have to squeeze in a lot, so obviously a year went by. A year after that, roughly, Boruto and Sarada would have been born to 21-year-old parents, roughly. They could have been 22. It's really hard to decide that because all the other kids, their parents had to get together, get married, get pregnant, and have the kids all at the same time, all in this like very small gap of their wedding and them having kids. So it was a pretty crazy time. Everyone was getting married and knocked up right here. Himawari is, as I understand it, 2 years younger than Boruto, so she would have been born here. And we go forward to Naruto being 30, Kakashi being 45. This is supposedly when Naruto became Hokage and Kakashi stepped down. Naruto being 33, Boruto being 12 is when the Boruto movie would have taken place, and this is vaguely where we are in the manga. And so, obviously, there's a lot of having to squeeze in a lot of things. A lot of things I looked up online suggested that Yahiko died at 15, which is actually impossible because he was 16 by the time the Third Ninja War happened. So he would have had to have died before Obito ever got his face crushed. So by virtue of having to follow the line of Obito getting his face crushed, being recovered by Madara, and all of that would have made Yahiko and the whole crew at least 17 or 18. And so, like, you really can't trust everything you read on the internet. So I try my best to stick with the manga. But obviously, if you think that I am wrong with any of these, please leave a comment because there's a lot here. And if there's any events that you want me to add, obviously I've got a lot of colored pens, and I will be adding more, but this is just what I've done right now. I watch Naruto. Always watching Naruto. This is actually how I choose to relax.